Namaste and welcome to Detours with me, Anuradha Goyal, where I talk to some very interesting personalities about journeys of all kinds. Today, we have a very interesting, innovative, and a pioneering concept that we are going to hear about. It's called Good Governance Yatra. When I first heard about it, I wondered what does good governance has to do with travel. But then I got to hear about it, and it is absolutely a fascinating concept. And it also opens up horizons for many different types of yatras that we can do. So, welcome Kumar Subham, Director of Vision India Foundation, which runs the Good Governance Yatra. Shubham, welcome to Detours.
Thank you, Anuradha. It's glad to be here. I have been hearing IndiTales Detours podcast uh, for the last 1 month since the time it got launched, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I got to meet Shubham when he presented his experiential tourism ideas at our Yatra conference, which is a fascinating talk. You should listen to it. But today we are focusing on Good Governance Yatra. So, Shubham, tell us what is Good Governance Yatra? What do you mean by Good Governance Yatra? What is it? Its aims? What does it aim to achieve? And how was it conceived?
Okay, that's three questions clubbed into one. I will
Yes.
try to answer them one after another.
Yes.
So, the idea of good governance yatra is self-explanatory in the name. For us, it is a little different than what is explained in the name. A little deeper insight into the yatra would reveal to us that we imagine this as a journey where inquisitive minds and especially minds who aspire to be public leaders in the future would meet the experience of possibilities, the experience that they could imagine change, they could imagine bringing that change by their own hard work in their own lifetimes, and also be aware and be observers to how society can evolve with time with a little hard work and dedication.
Okay.
That is how we imagine the yatra to be.
Okay.
It simply imagines that we will highlight some bright spots in governance. The entire idea of governance that seem to be tamed a little. We try to highlight what are the bright spots in this, who are actual change makers on ground and how they're bringing change. The second goal is to inspire next generation change makers, people who want to pursue change as a career, as a full-time profession. They should feel that there is a possibility that they will be successful. And if they devote their times, people like them have become successful in the past. And there is a possibility to bring a change. The third goal would be, as we imagine, Vision India Foundation is imagined to be a movement, a nation building movement. So this is to build people who will commit full time to this movement. So full time nation building is the objective. So people should pursue full time careers in this domain. And the fourth is to carve out and share a framework and a lens to look at governance and how we can understand and experience various aspects of the idea of policy and governance. So that brings up to the yatra and how we imagine the goals and how we imagine the aims of the program.
So essentially, you are trying to create a bridge between the current change makers and potential future change makers.
Exactly, yes. We believe that often when we hear things in classrooms and when we hear things in stories, when we hear things on podcasts and YouTube channels, a part of our mind remains skeptical that whether this is possible, is this all real? So this gives us a platform and an experience that all of this, whatever is being said, is not out of the blue. There are things happening on ground which we might not hear because of our skewed sources of information, be it media, be it our social media profiles. You might not know about things being done on ground, but there are things being done, and possibly you can play a role too.
And also, there is nothing like a first-hand experience. You know,
Nothing like,
you can read as much as you want, but there is nothing that 5 minutes of meeting that person can say far more than his book can say.
Exactly, yes. This is what Swami Vivekananda mentioned as well. Before he started his journey and after he ended his journey, he mentioned the same quote twice. So he mentioned that there is nothing more than what can experience can teach you. And especially in our nation as well, we value experience too much. Be it spirituality, be it religion, be it the idea of existence, we believe in the idea of experience, and that's what this yatra brings to.
Yeah, and that's my own experience. What I had learned every day on the road, uh, nothing can teach me. I have a huge library at home, but it's worth nothing when it comes to actually stepping out and learning about
Right, right.
it.
That's how the yatra also got envisaged. So
Right.
we were doing a policy program,
Mhm.
and where we just finished a session by a sarpanch from Western Maharashtra.
Mhm.
That sarpanch is now Padma Shri, Poputra
Mhm.
Pawarji. You might have heard
Okay.
about him.
Yes, yes.
So he just finished his lecture and he gave his entire theory of change and how he brought things to his village, how the village got transformed, how people got
Mhm.
together, and the entire idea of social movement leading to social change.
Right.
And just when we came out, and it was a eavesdropping that led to the yatra. So some of
Right.
the delegates were talking about how they feel that there might be some facts being hidden, and there's some facts which might not be talked about in the class because all of this is too good to be true.
Right.
Uh, Personally, I had been to this village and I knew that everything that he has talked is, if at all, lesser than what has happened and not exaggerated.
That's true. And I also feel that, I have a background in business innovation, and I feel that innovation happens at intersections. It's when you meet people who are absolutely not like you. That's when new ideas take birth.
Yes, 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 yes. So that's what one of the as we move to share more details about the yatra, probably it will come up. The yatra delegation is about that. So we
Right,
get people from across the spectrum,
right,
and that's what became also one of the fundamental pillars of the yatra. Because when we say we look at an e-governance project, we
right.
often realize, and being an engineer by background, I can see the technology behind it. I can very well see the various platforms that they are using, the
Yes,
various possibilities that can exist even in future, be it in
right,
terms of data, be it in terms of tech improvisations.
right.
If I have a colleague who is from a humanities background, that
Hmm.
person will very well be able to see the sociological angle behind the
Right,
entire project and how that will fundamentally change the nature of society in various forms.
right,
Or similarly, when we have an economist with us, that person will be able to see the financial angles and how this will either bring a dent or bring a positive impact to the state's
right.
exchequer, and very well articulate it to what we all can understand. So that is very important, Anuradhaji. Very well put.
Okay, so that brings me to the next question. Who are your participants and how do you select them? Or how do they reach out to you? Both ways.
So there is an entire workflow that we
Mhm.
follow
Mhm.
for the yatra. So one is a broad outreach that happens. So every
Mhm.
yatra, when we travel, we create various ways to reach out with our experiences from the yatra. So if we are
Right.
moving to a city, we invite local change makers in that city to come and meet us because often
Okay.
the they are the honeybees who are
Right.
aware where the honey is, who are aware where
Right.
the fragrance is. So
Right.
if we go to Varanasi, we will reach out to a local change maker who has brought good things in Varanasi, because
Right.
it is more likely for that girl or that boy or that
Mhm.
lady to
Mhm.
be in touch with local change makers. So we
Right.
definitely make it a point that we have lunches and dinners with them because they
Right.
eventually lead good people to us.
Right.
That is a word of mouth approach. The
Right.
second approach is we have an active website, we have an active social media pages, so all those usual forms of digital marketing happen.
Right.
The
Right.
third form is when we reach out via mentors and via organizations. So if you
Right.
are aware that, say, there is a good volunteering organization in Hyderabad, then we
Right.
definitely reach out to them and ask them
Right.
that if you have good people who imagine their role working with the government, please refer
Right.
them to us. So we reach out
Ah.
annually to around 60 plus organizations to ask them
Right.
for referrals.
And then these participants have to apply for this
They have to
yatra.
apply. So there is a selection process and application process. The application form is long. There are
Mhm.
three, four essay questions, which
Okay.
sort of acts as a first filter. If people
Mhm.
are dedicated enough to fill up the form, they will be dedicated enough to build a career in the domain. Because it
Right.
takes time to fill up the form. There is a video essay that is required to talk
Mhm.
about your idea of change and what do you
Right.
imagine is your form of change.
Great.
Similarly, we try to understand how inquisitive the person is,
Mhm.
both from the application form and the subsequent interviews. So there
Okay.
are two rounds of interview. One round is taken by the alums. So the
Mhm.
alums best know about the yatra and what is gonna come next. So they should be able to tell people and select people who are more likely to make the cut, because it is
Right.
physically as well enduring. It is a
Right.
9 day travel. You sleep on the buses for most nights. So there
Right.
is a lot of physical disharmony that happens with you and your body. And then there is an intellectual overshoot of knowledge as well, because
Right.
you meet so many people, it takes time to assimilate all those ideas and often
Right.
contextualize them to your own sets of beliefs and your set of values.
It sounds like the modern day version of a tapas.
So we call it sadhana. So the yatra should be felt like a sadhana.
Yes, yes. So it is
So
physical. It demands physical, emotional, mental, and does
correct.
it demand financial?
Yes. So overall, the yatra costs the delegates sum of 40,000. But this is
Okay,
not same for all. We follow a
okay,
cross subsidy model,
okay.
in which we try to get money from people who can pay more and who have
Mm-hmm.
financial sufficiency to pay 40,000 rupees. For
Okay.
the rest, around 60% of the crowd, we give
Mm-hmm.
them very good scholarships. So scholarships
Okay.
range between 80% to 20%.
Okay.
And so the fee range usually is 8,000 rupees, which is the minimal fee, and
Mm-hmm.
40,000, which is the highest fee. Uh,
Okay.
and it is good cross subsidy, pure cross subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
So Yatra in itself becomes financially self-sustainable for the organization.
So at the end of it, do you give them a certificate or something that they can use?
So they get a certificate, they get a chance to intern with various organizations, so they are given that a chance. We
Mm-hmm.
have various workshops in the duration, which also asks them to write few articles and few publish some case studies in the
Mm-hmm.
form of, we have an annual compendium of good governance, so they
Okay.
get to be co-authors in that compendium, which
Okay.
adds heavily to their profile.
Right.
In terms of a network, so currently VIF has a network of 1500 plus alums, and
Okay.
this network is heavy
So
because the
these are the
people,
people who have already taken the Yatra,
not
1500
just
people.
Yatra,
Mm-hmm.
also other programs of VIF.
Okay. Some
And
programs
this
of AIF.
and this network is wide. So Anuradhaji, this network is 180 districts of India where the people
Right.
have come from. So fairly well spread, all states of
Which is
India.
very interesting because I usually end up hearing, oh, we are present in 5 big cities.
No, no, no.
So
So this,
I'm the one reason that I really wanted you to be on this podcast is that you are sitting somewhere in Jharkhand and speaking to me, and your work also goes to grassroots levels. You know, it gives an opportunity to Indians, young Indians in the hinterlands of India. Although I don't like the word hinterlands, but just so that people understand.
so a lot of our alums actually go back and work there, and that's
Right.
what we expose the delegates to be. So every yatra we make sure that we have at least one or more villages in which we also get a chance to stay.
Okay.
If not village, then at least small towns where we get to stay, because that's when a lot of delegates also experience it for the first time. So some
Right.
people who come from urban centers have never seen what a small town looks like and what people in
Right.
small towns feel like, and
Right.
often that becomes a big bottleneck for
Yeah.
their imagination of India. And same is
Right.
true for people from the villages as well. When people
Right.
come from a very small place in tribal
Mm-hmm.
area of Odisha, when they go and see Jhabua in Madhya Pradesh being very developed, they
Right.
suddenly start imagining that they can be that person who has brought that
Right.
change in Jhabua, Madhya Pradesh. So that
Right.
imagination is important for us.
Okay. Now my next question is something that I am very interested in as a traveler. Now, what are the experiences these people have on the yatra? What is a typical 9 day yatra look like, and what are the some of the key experiences that you can speak about?
So 9 day yatra is very exhaustive. So I will, if I give you a quick itinerary. So we
Mm-hmm.
usually start from an urban location because that's
Mm-hmm.
easier for people to reach. So we
Right.
start from a state capital, whichever
Right.
state we are starting from. In
Mm-hmm.
a typical yatra, we cover 4 states.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so which sums up to somewhere around 2,500 to 3,500 kilometers is the usual
Okay.
travel length. To
Mm-hmm.
travel this much duration in 9 days, you need to travel every night. Uh,
Right.
most of the travels are via buses. In some
Mm-hmm.
durations where the travel is long, we take up trains. So we leave one
Mm-hmm.
bus, move our luggage to a train, and then move to another city.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Usually we cover 2 projects in a day and
Mm-hmm.
2 interactions. So lunch and dinner are the times for interaction. So we get
Mm-hmm.
invite 2-3 dignitaries to come and join us for lunches and dinners, and
Mm-hmm.
then we divide the group into multiple subsections. And
Mm-hmm.
then around 2 projects, one in the morning, one in the evening. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how a typical itinerary looks like. I can share more details, but usually we cover one city in a day and then travel overnight and move to another city. That's how the itinerary moves. In terms of experiences, Radhaji, I have been very fortunate to be to both curate this yatra, both to imagine this yatra, and also be a part of all the yatras.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant experiences, brilliant
I'm
experiences.
sure.
So we went to Balasore in Odisha in the third
Mm-hmm.
yatra.
Mm-hmm.
Balasore, we went there because we heard about an Asha worker from
Mm-hmm.
Pradhan Mantri's Man Ki Baat.
Mm-hmm.
So he mentioned about an Asha worker who has made her village malaria free. Now
Mm-hmm.
reaching out there was difficult because the village has no network connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
The last road
Mm-hmm.
ends 2 kilometers before the village, so there is no
Mm-hmm.
direct road connectivity as well. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
walk on foot to reach the village.
Mm-hmm.
It is that deep inside the forest.
Mm-hmm.
But we heard it and we wanted to find out. So one of our alums helped us reach out there.
Mm-hmm.
When we went there, we met Jamuna Mani Singh. Jamuna Mani Singh was the Asha worker whose name was there.
Mm-hmm.
The entire village had come to greet us 2 kilometers away from the village. So we had a population of 500 people welcoming us, 60 of us.
That's
and
India.
and the entire village was dancing because for the first time they had someone come from beyond Balasore. Balasore was the
The
district in which we were
closest big
operating.
town.
Yes. And they were seeing people from outside Balasore for the first time, leave even Bhubaneswar, which is just 2 or 3 hours from there.
Mm-hmm.
And there were drums and all forms of singing and dancing, and we could not understand a single word.
Mm-hmm.
But the entire warmth that was offered to us was so
Mm.
invigorating for all of us. We entered there, all of us were greeted with tilak on the forehead. We were all tied the holy thread on our palms,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all greeted with a yagya.
Mm.
We could not fathom this. Even we as organizers could not fathom this, that this would be the
Mm-hmm.
level of welcome they would give us. And
Yes.
then one of our delegates was a Odia, so he translated the entire experience for us, and it was
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. The entire village was sitting silently and listening to us, and at the end they had just one question to ask: can
Mm.
you please travel throughout the village and suggest us places where we can do something better for the village? And this
Wow.
was being requested by the sarpanch.
Ah.
We never felt so proud.
Outsider.
But this outsider feeling was lost the moment we got down from the bus, and we never felt so much connectedness that people
Yes.
who do not know us are looking for options how they can make their village a better village. And this
Yes.
village has 4 ponds,
Mm-hmm.
and with 4 ponds, the village is malaria free.
Yes.
So our entire experience changed. We were accompanied by a person named Pratap Sarangiji. At that time, ex-MLA. And he took us. We also went to his house for one of the meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived. If you have seen his village now, his village has seen all popular media channels.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in a hut, proper hut. He does
Mm-hmm.
not own a bed. He sleeps on a cot. He owns a bicycle, not even a bike, and he
Mm-hmm.
donates his entire salary for education of people around.
Mm-hmm.
That time uh, his retirement payment, because he
Mm-hmm.
was a retired MLA that time, ex MLA.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years later, we heard him becoming the union minister.
Mm-hmm.
So we understood that the power of meeting people from the ground who were doing amazing work, and then
Right.
finally seeing them rise across the hierarchy and bringing
Yes.
change directly. That was big experience. We went to also a very counter experience to this was Vikram Sarabhai Space Research Center in
Mm-hmm.
Kerala. So we went to Vikram Sarabhai Space Research Center,
Mm-hmm.
and a satellite launch vehicle (SLV)
Mm-hmm.
was in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that and
Mm-hmm.
understanding for us from being a technology background, for
Mm-hmm.
us that was like a dream. So
Yes.
ISRO is like a dream organization for a lot of
Right.
Indians.
Right. Right.
And seeing a space launch vehicle and the entire set of scientists from the head of the institution to head of research to head of all the audits to the financial head to the partnership head, all of them were sitting in front of us.
Right.
And we talked for an hour about how ISRO plays a role. And at the end, they asked us that what do we do to invite some of you to join our organization, because we
Mm-hmm.
struggle with finding the best talent because we cannot pay as high salaries as corporates can pay.
Right.
And that was second big hit I had in life. That
Mm-hmm.
often we aim to these places when we are growing up, seeing the
Yes.
faces of Kalpana Chawla, Rakesh Sharma.
Yes.
We've all
Yes.
grown up seeing their faces to be our models and
Yes.
inspiration. We had a
Right.
entire building in our college, in our school, dedicated to APJ Kalam, and a big
Right.
hall dedicated to Kalpana Chawla.
Right.
We were all kids at that time when these people were
Mm-hmm.
bringing and building glories to our nation.
Mm-hmm.
And then them asking us this simple question was a big moment of realization. Thankfully, two of our alums have now went ahead and joined these places. So that's a
Ah.
big sense of pride as well as
Mm-hmm.
a sense of relief that finally that Yatra had some good things. But overall, meeting them was very, very inspiring.
How easy is it to rope in these kind of people to collaborate with you?
So Jamuna Maniji was tough. So Jamuna Maniji, we reached out via a local NGO and a local alum who
Mm-hmm.
dedicated 3 days to of travel to go to this place, actually find out the village on his bike, and finally
Mm-hmm.
led us to that.
Right.
Uh, ISRO was relatively easier. We said shot them in email. Our
Yeah.
alums and our profile of participants act as
Mm-hmm.
big pushes for us to get these
Mm-hmm.
appointments. When we claim that we have the best talent of us, and
Mm-hmm.
when we also make a promise to them that
Mm-hmm.
we firmly believe that these people are gonna dedicate their life for the nation, and it is not
Right.
just an exploratory travel or a touristy travel for them,
Right.
then
Right.
they get some sense of trust. uh,
Mm-hmm.
Also our previous profile, so this is like a loop. So
Right.
because
Right.
so one of the yatras was launched by Pranab Mukherjee ji, the ex-president.
Right.
One of the
Right.
yatras was facilitated, has seen 3 cabinet ministers, 2 chief ministers. So those things, once they're done, they call out for each other. So
Right.
one good experience calls out for another good experience, and so on and so forth.
Right. So a
Yeah.
typical yatra has how many participants?
uh, so the first yatra had 20.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have stabilized at 80, which makes 2 buses full of people. The last
8080.
8080, last 2 yatras had 80 people each.
80 people. And so also walk me through how does a typical yatra day look like? So let's say day 3, day 4 uh, of yatra look like morning getting up to night time.
Okay, so let me just give you the itinerary of day 3 and day 4 of last 2 yatras.
Mm-hmm.
So day 3 of the last yatra, we were in Jaipur.
Okay.
That was the day, and Radhaji, I talked to you personally on phone as well, if you remember. I was in Jaipur rugs that day.
Okay. This is for
So,
the Yatra conference, is it?
no, no, this is post the Yatra conference. This is
Oh,
December
okay.
last year. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah. So the morning started when we visited to the Rajasthan state. They had an incubation center for
Okay.
startups.
Okay.
This is called Bhamasha Bhavan or something,
Okay.
Bhamasha something, on
Right.
the name of Bhamasha.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a state incubation for startups. So we went
Mm-hmm.
there. We
Mm-hmm.
started the day with a tour of state's innovation idea, the idea of innovation in the state, and
Okay.
we met with some 5 startups. All of them
Okay.
gave their 5-minute pitches, and
Okay.
then we talked about how state imagines the idea of role of startups in their
Okay.
vision for long-term growth of the state.
Okay.
The day began with that. Post that, we went to Jaipur Rugs. Jaipur
Okay.
Rugs is a
I know.
social enterprise. Most of us would be aware of this.
Yeah.
We met with the person who is in charge of this,
Mm-hmm.
and
I wrote about them. I authored a series called India Innovates for CII. So they were one of my case studies.
wonderful. So we had a tour of their head office and how
Mm-hmm.
they see. They have a replica of all their units inside their head office in Jaipur,
Right. Right.
and we had an interaction with the founder of it.
Mm-hmm.
We also interacted with some artisans there and how they imagine their role
Right.
in the overall project. So we spent around 3 hours in the compound.
Okay.
Post that, we went to meet a bureaucrat called Ashish Modi. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he's a IS officer and
Mm-hmm.
was previously heading the health department, and
Mm-hmm.
currently was heading the personal and training department of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And we had another bureaucrat from the tourism department, so tourism principal secretary of the
Right.
Rajasthan government.
Right.
Both of them joined us for evening snacks.
Okay.
So this is they both talked about their own journeys and how they imagined the role of an IAS. Both are
Mm-hmm.
young IAS officers, both from 2011 cadre, I suppose, and
Mm-hmm.
both of them talked about their past 8-9 years of work. So this is
Okay.
what one yatra looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give another experience, this was the third yatra, and the third day we had spent in Raipur.
Mm-hmm.
So we started
Chhattisgarh.
Raipur, Chhattisgarh. We started from Madhya Pradesh and then finally reached Raipur on the third day. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the day started with meeting the chief minister, so Raman Singh ji. So we went to
Mm-hmm.
his house. We had breakfast with him, and then
Mm-hmm.
he talked to us for around half an hour formally on
Mm-hmm.
talking about priorities of the state.
Okay.
Then we went to Naya Raipur, which is the new city, Atal Nagar now it is called, the
Yes.
new city that is being planned.
Yes.
We had an
It has
entire
one of the most beautiful museums in India.
yes, we could not get chance to look at the museum, but we saw the presentation of the museum.
Okay. Yeah.
When then we went to the Naya Raipur, we had a tour of the city. Then we went to
Mm-hmm.
a building which was a green building, and
Mm-hmm.
it was also the secretariat of the state. And
Mm-hmm.
then we interacted over how the new city is being imagined and
Mm-hmm.
how they are planning getting investments for the city. So we met with the investments board of Chhattisgarh state.
Okay.
Then we went ahead, and then in the evening we went to a show or a program called Hamar Chhattisgarh, which was a scheme by Chhattisgarh government in which they showcased the culture and the policies of the state to every representative from each village. So
Okay.
they had 200 sarpanches, up sarpanches, and panchayat members from different villages, and they
Okay.
all had a cultural show. They had
Mhm.
a show of all the important policies, and they had
Mhm.
kiosks on which
Mhm.
policies you can bring into your respective districts and villages, which are
Okay.
not yet there. You can get information about them. You can get a brochure about them, and
Mhm.
a tour of the city was there for them in the day. So we had
Okay.
interaction with around 50 sarpanches. So all of them sat one to one with some of the sarpanches, and
Mhm.
we tried to understand the local culture, understanding how they
Mhm.
imagine their role as a sarpanch in the village,
Mhm.
and how they
Mhm.
see the experience of Hamar Chhattisgarh.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
then we went off to bed. So this is rough
This is how
itinerary
a
for
typical day looks like.
yes.
And you said you travel at night, and I was doing some math, so you should be averaging about 300 to 400 kilometers a day, right? So where do you actually, so you go and stay in a hotel where you take your bath and change
Right.
and.
So usually after dinner we start travel. So we
Mhm.
have dinner at usually around 8:39,
Mhm.
and then we take a half an hour break in the same place just to
Oh,
walk around and let the stomach settle down, and
okay.
then we start traveling at around 9:30, 10. We
Okay.
usually reach our destinations at around 4 or 5 in the morning.
Okay.
We have 4 hours to spare at there. We
Okay.
usually start the day next day at 8. So with the unpacking and the reloading takes around half an hour to 45 minutes on each time.
Right.
But we get 2 3 hours of spare time. So that's where we
Okay.
freshen up. Some of us finish our sleeps, some of us finish our naps, some of us finish our readings.
Right.
There are some assignments that they are given throughout the yatra. Some
Okay.
of them finish their reading, some of them finish their group discussions, and all those things
Right.
happen.
Great.
These are usually hotels and roadside motels. Yeah.
Yeah, whichever. I mean, when you travel in the hinterlands of India, you literally have to take whatever is available. You can't really get too choosy. So from here on, so what are the typical elements that you keep in mind when you curate a yatra like this? So I see that you have the governance elements, but where you meet the policymakers, politicians, government people, IS officers, sarpanches. But apart from these, are there any other elements that you incorporate?
So we ensure that we go to one social enterprise in each yatra, and
Okay.
especially enterprises which work very closely with the government. So
Okay.
we go to have been to Amul in Anand
Gujarat.
in Gujarat. We have
Mm-hmm.
been to Jaipur Rugs. We have been to Adabya Chetna in Bangalore. We
Right.
have been to Akshay Patra in Vrindavan, um,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Something social. We also try to visit one good social reformer or social activist or social worker in the state.
Right.
Mostly people who believe in the idea of uh, collective consciousness of society to be the
Okay.
driver of change, not a mode in which they take an anti-system stand, but people who
Okay.
usually prefer working with the system. And by system, it does not mean only the government, but also the
Right.
local customs and local traditions of the area. So
Right.
one Padma Shri is what we usually aim for in every yatra.
One Padma Shri is you
Yeah,
aim for. So these are the key elements that you look for.
right. And at least one village.
Right.
And at least one infrastructure project, because infrastructure projects usually give people the awe of grandeur. So,
Right.
so when you go to a dam and stand on the top of it, you suddenly realize how massive this must have been to imagine and then action it. Or you go
Actually,
to the deep inside a tunnel inside a metro, you realize how technologically challenging it must be to construct a metro.
right.
Things of that sort.
Right. So it opens up the mental horizons to think
Right.
big.
Right. Yes. Not just think big, also imagine that you can be that person. Because these people are usually people who have come from similar backgrounds as the participants.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'll wrap it up by asking you, what are you, what is the future plan for this? I mean, of course, it will go on, but at this point in time, are there any other plans of similar other yatras or making this yatra even more comprehensive?
So one idea that is that is still in the minds, still not in the paper or out in the website,
Mm-hmm.
but to have a much deeper engagement with India, something like an India 101. Uh,
Hmm.
I personally call it Bharatam,
Mm-hmm.
or Antavraman. One of these two names I have it for it, which
Mm-hmm.
is like a comprehensive yatra to understand India. Governance would be one aspect of it. The
I think you
culture,
should partner with IndiTales for that.
wherever this figures out. Yes, I was
Yes.
planning to have something of this sort in 2021,
Yes.
but we will see how the COVID-19 turns out to be.
Right, right.
So the idea was to have spiritual elements, the cultural
Yes,
elements, the governance
yes.
elements, the social entrepreneurship elements. The overall idea was to get people an exposure of what India means and
Mm-hmm.
how India imagines itself.
Right.
And this would be a much longer. This would be a 3 month travel. 3 month need not be consistently that we are always traveling just like the good governance yatra, but
Mm-hmm.
you go to one place, stay there for a couple of days or up to a week, and then you
Mm-hmm.
move on to next destination. uh,
Okay.
Overall curating this as a learning journey, so imagining this from a persona of a participant, a persona of a yatri, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand what all elements will the person have to
Mm-hmm.
understand India, what are the various elements of understanding India.
Yes.
This is also both imagined for people who feel that they still need a so-called discovery of India, or
Mm-hmm.
people who may feel the need to just understand India deeper before they start working. So most of my inspirations in life have traveled. So be it Mahatma Gandhi, be it Swami Vivekananda, be it some of my professors in my college.
Oh, anybody,
Everyone,
you can't become a great man without traveling. You just
yes.
can't become. I mean, I haven't come across a single person who gained wisdom without traveling.
Thank you for saying it, Radhaji, so loud and clear.
No, I haven't come across because I'm right now trying to read all possible travelogues now that we are stuck at home. So I haven't come across a single person who we who we listen to, who's wise uh, and who has not traveled. So
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
So building that culture, building that
Great.
overall movement. Long term idea is also to get travel as part of the curriculum of various
Yes.
boards. That
Right.
there should be a component in which people get to travel their neighborhoods. What
Right.
you mentioned as
Backyard travel.
backyard travels, it should be part of the curriculum. My father is a
Absolutely.
geography professor. He always claims this to me, that you know about Ganga, you know about the five big rivers of the country, but you do
Hmm.
not know about the two rivers that cross your district, and that
Right.
is a sad reality. So we should
Right.
do
In
a lot
fact,
of
I
backyard travels.
I sometimes do these questions on Sunday questions on Twitter, and once I asked people to identify the river they were born closest to. You know, wherever you were born, which is the river closest to. Most people had to go back googling. And so, but it was an interesting exercise. A lot of people actually discovered river names that day. So yes, there is a lot of deep dive needed. Great, Shubham. This was a great conversation, and I'm sure as and when you design your next yatras, we'll have another conversation about it. And I wish you all the best for doing this very important job of connecting India with Indians.
Thank you, Anuradhaji. I'm hoping in the long run that will not be needed because Indians should be connected with India. But for the time being, I feel that it helps me understand India better. People
Yes.
should do travel on their own.
Yes, people should. People should. But we also learn when we travel together,
Yes, 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 yes,
right?
indeed.
Great, Shubham. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anuradhaji.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for joining us on Detours. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is IndiTales, INDITALES. See you soon.